Let's be honest, when you hear the words options trading, what's the first thing that comes to mind? For most people, it's all about high-stakes gambling, massive risk, and stories of people losing it all. It just feels like this super complex, dangerous game that's best left to the pros on Wall Street. And you know what? That criticism is not wrong. Some option strategies absolutely carry an insane amount of risk. That fear is probably the #1 reason most people stay away, and it's a totally valid concern. But here's the idea that might just flip your whole perspective. What if I told you that some option strategies, when used correctly, could actually be less risky than just buying and holding stock? That instead of adding risk, they could help you manage it, all while generating a little income on the side. It's a total flip of the script. Okay, let's get into it. To really understand how that's even possible, we need to strip away all the confusing Wall Street jargon and look at what an option really is. Because at its heart, it's nothing more than a simple contract, an agreement between two people. That's it. It's a contract with very clear terms: what the security is, what the price is, and when the deal expires. But the most important part of this whole thing is the difference between the two sides of the deal. One person gets a right, a choice, and the other person takes on an obligation, a duty. And understanding that one little difference, well, that's the key to everything we're about to talk about. So this sets up a really interesting dynamic, right? The buyer is paying a fee, we call it a premium, for control. They're buying the choice to do something. But the seller gets paid that premium right now, up front, in cash, and they get that cash just for accepting the obligation to act if the buyer decides to use their choice. All the safer, income-focused strategies we're exploring today, they all come from the seller's point of view. Okay, so how does being a seller actually become a real-world strategy? Well, let's look at two really powerful, conservative ways to do it. And I want you to think of these not as some aggressive bet, but more like a way to get paid for your patience. You're literally getting paid while you wait to buy a stock you already wanted, or getting paid while you just hold a stock you already own. Now, here's the bold claim from our source material that really underpins this whole idea. The argument is that by selling these specific options, your risk is actually lower than if you just went out and bought 100 shares of the stock. So how on earth is that possible? First up is the covered call. This one is specifically for people who already own shares of a stock. It's a simple 3-step dance. You own the shares, you sell what's called a call option, which gives someone else the right to buy those shares from you at a higher price, and for selling them that right, you collect cash instantly. It's kind of like you're getting paid to rent out the potential upside of your shares. And this table shows you exactly how that reduces your risk. Let's imagine the worst-case scenario. The stock goes all the way to zero. A normal stockholder who bought at $100 is down 10 grand. The person who sold a covered call is also down 10 grand on their stock, but they got to keep that $500 premium they collected. It acts like a small cushion, a little buffer that reduces their total loss. So at any price below where they agreed to sell, the covered call seller always comes out ahead by the exact amount of that cash premium. All right, the second strategy is the flip side, the cash secured put. This is for people who want to buy a stock, but they think the price is a little too high right now. So you set aside the cash you'd need and you sell a put option. This obligates you to buy the stock, but only if it drops to the lower price you want. And just for being willing to do that, you collect a cash premium right away. It's literally like getting paid to put in a buy order for a stock you already wanted. Okay, and here is where it all clicks together. These two strategies, the covered call and the cash secured put, they aren't just one-off ideas. You can actually link them together to create this amazing cyclical system for buying stocks and generating income. It's a strategy known as the wheel. The wheel turns just like this. You start by selling those cash secured puts, collecting cash while you wait. If the stock drops to your price, you get assigned, which is just a fancy way of saying you fulfill your duty and buy the shares. Great, now you own the stock, so you immediately switch gears and start selling covered calls, collecting even more cash. If the stock then rises to the call's price, your shares get called away. They're sold automatically. And just like that, you're back to holding cash, usually with a nice profit, ready to start the whole cycle all over again. It's a beautiful system for buying low and selling high, and you're getting paid at every single stage. Okay, I know what you're thinking. This sounds almost too good to be true. And it is so important that we hit pause and do a reality check. Because while these strategies are less risky than just owning stock, they're absolutely not risk-free. There is no such thing as a free lunch in the markets, and you have to know the downsides. So these are some of the most common mistakes people make when they first start, pulled right from what traders talk about online. They jump in without a real plan. They see those big, juicy premiums on some volatile meme stock and chase after them. They don't really think through what happens if they get assigned the shares and have to hold a losing stock. And of course, they have crazy expectations. Making consistent money with this is possible, but it is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It all boils down to this fundamental trade-off. With a covered call, you're trading away massive, unlimited gains for small, consistent income. If that stock goes to the moon, you don't get to enjoy that ride. You have to sell at your agreed-upon price. And with a cash-secured put, you have to be okay with buying a stock even if it's in a free fall. If the stock crashes, you're still on the hook to buy it at that higher price you agreed to. That's the deal. So how do you manage that? Well, here's a simple but incredibly powerful rule of thumb to protect yourself. Never risk more than 1 or 2% of your total portfolio on any single trade. That way, even if one position goes completely against you, it's just a small bump, not a catastrophe that wipes you out.
All right, we've talked strategy, we've talked risks, but there's one last powerful benefit to all of this that honestly, most people have no idea even exists, and it has to do with taxes. Now, this doesn't apply to your regular options on stocks like Apple or Tesla, or even on ETFs like SPY. This is a special rule under Section 1256 of the IRS code, specifically for options on broad market indexes, like the S&P 500 index itself, which trades under the ticker SPX, and the tax treatment is very different. Just look at the impact here. If you make a $15,000 profit trading normal options, it's a short-term gain, and you could easily pay over $5,000 in taxes. But with these special index options, the IRS treats your profit as 60% long-term and 40% short-term, even if you only held the position for a day. And because long-term gains are taxed at a much lower rate, your tax bill could drop by over $1,000. That's a huge difference for the exact same profit. So let's circle all the way back to the beginning. We started out by saying that everyone thinks options are incredibly risky. But after looking at these strategies, maybe that's just the wrong question. Maybe the real question we should be asking is, how can these tools be used not to create risk, but to help me manage the risk I already have? That's where the real power is.